Hello everyone, my name is Alexander Thorns, but you can call me Sasha, and welcome to part 3 of my Elimination Nuzlocke challenge of Pokémon Red, Blue and Yellow. On the last video of this YouTube series, where I strive for the goal of using every single fully evolved Pokémon of the Generation 1 games, without repeats, I completed the Poison typing, getting 6 more Pokémon added to the ban list, having a total of 9. Yes, there is still a long way to go since the final number of fully evolved Pokémon is 80, so I'm officially 1/10 of the way there. With the Poison typing video finished and me not using any of the part grass types available for strategic reasons, I decided that this was the time to take on the challenge and use all the grass types, and I still have a lot of planning to do before I even start the game. Although this time there isn't any banned encounters, since the only grass type that has attempted this challenge so far was Parasect, that was used in part 1, the bug challenge. But it got defeated without getting the crown of a champion, meaning that my favorite Pokémon from Generation 1 has to survive this run for me to fully scratch the bug typing from the list. So that's one mandatory champion, but there are more in this run. Since I'll do anything in my power to avoid another Poison type run, I need all the part Poison types to complete the challenge as well, so Venusaur, Vileplume and Victreebel need to be part of the surviving champions, so that's 4 obligatory Pokémon. And to round it all out, Tangela is the only pure grass type of Generation 1, so I can only use it in this run, meaning that I have 5 Pokémon that need to survive up until the end. But since I chose Pokémon Yellow for this run, since I haven't played it yet, and the fact that Tangela needs to finish this run means Executor won't be available for this one, because in Yellow both Tangela and Execute are Safari Zone exclusives. This isn't really a problem, because the last remaining grass type is also part Psychic type, so I got another shot at using it. In this series of runs, I also allow myself to have a special starter that I receive instead of the regular starter, and on this game will be no different, as Bellsprout will be my special starter simply because it's my favorite grass type from Generation 1. But let me just point out the elephant in the room, because the conundrum I proposed before can easily be fixed if I played Pokémon Red or Blue and gave myself the grass version exclusive as a special starter. This way I can use all grass types in one go, because Tangela is available at Route 21 in those games, leaving Execute open to be captured legally at the Safari Zone. But that solution creates a problem that I can't overlook. I'll have 2 starters without catching any of them, and to me that feels a lot more like cheating than the current rules I'm currently using. For that reason, I'm sticking with Pokémon Yellow for this run. But you might be asking, why don't you get Tangela as a special starter, so you just catch a Bellsprout and audition Pokémon Yellow? Well, let me introduce you to Tangela's level up moveset. Now, I like a little bit of BDSM as much as your mom does, but I'm not into psychological torture. And trying to defeat Brock's hard rock types with a resistant non-stab base 10 power construct that's coming from a base 55 attack Pokémon, that's like me entering a dick measuring competition against Shaquille O'Neal, and unlike the dream I had last night with your sister, my wet noodle would not rise up to the occasion. With all of that out of the way, these are the rules I'm following for this particular series. There will be a more detailed version of them in the description, and while down there, subscribe for more. So, let's get to the video. I name my character Konoha and proceed to meet Professor Oak, receiving a temporary starter, until I get his parcel back and receive the Pokédex, where I can finally receive my special starter, a Bellsprout, and officially start this run. There isn't much for me to say for this section, because although Viridian Forest was especially challenging this time around, with Bellsprout only knowing Vine Whip, which bugs resist and poison also resists. But after a lot of runs to the Pokémon Center and a lot of help from Growth, I arrive at Pewter City, the location of my first gym challenge, where I need to face Brock, the Rock-type expert, and it goes as well as you were expecting, because with only Vine Whip in his arsenal, Bellsprout can defeat Geodude and Onix with ease, giving me my first badge. Sorry Brock, you still suck. Now I can make my way onto Mount Moon, where the next mandatory encounter awaits, a Paras. And as much as I love this Pokémon, truth is, Para sucks in the first generation games. And even worse, in a grass-only scenario, this little bug is the lowest of the low, but I still need to find a way to turn this guy into a champion. At the end of Mount Moon, I can choose a useless fossil and have my first confront with Team Rocket, easily dispatching them. That battle wasn't an absolute waste, however, because my starter Bellsprout evolves into a Weeping Bell. This also means my team's level are getting closer to the next gym leader, so I have to add into it as soon as I get into Slowbro City. I don't want to be too overleveled for this fight, since the next challenge is Misty, the water type user, and just like Brock, she is easily defeated by Weeping Bell and Vine Whip, although I do get Paras to start and paralyze Staryu before defeating her simply because I forgot to swap Paras into the second slot. But I got my second badge faster than you can say supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, and that only took me 8 takes. Now that I got my second badge, my 10 watts light bulb that I have as a brain finally turned on, and I remember that I'm playing Pokémon Yellow. That means that in Cerulean City there is a new encounter, and this is a Bulbasaur that you can receive from this lovely lady if your starter Pikachu loves you very much. This would usually take a lot of time spent with it and battling through Kanto, but in my case I dropped it into the void for it to be forgotten, just like you do with your problems. But there is a way to go around this requirement, because if you force feed it potions while it is at full health, the potion will not be spent but Pikachu's friendly meter will increase. Do this for like 30 to 40 reps and you get yourself a Bulbasaur. That immediately evolves into an Ivysaur as I get it up to my team's level. Next, I technically need to face my rival at the base of the Nugget Bridge, but since I have already defeated the gym, my team is kind of overleveled and Weeping Bell and Ivysaur can make quick work of him. Now I can pass the Battle Gauntlet that is the Nugget Bridge, and after getting an invitation to join the Mafia that I refuse because I need to tend to my flower picking. Speaking of which, at north of Cerulean City I can add a new encounter, this one being an Oddish that I capture and add to the team, as it also starts evolving into a Gloom during my path to Bill's house. In there I save him from being called the Eternal Furry and receive the SS ticket. With the ticket in hand, this guy's house is finally vandalized, giving me an exit out of Cerulean City, and after finding the culprit of the terrorist act, I thank him and in return he gives me the TM for Dig. That is the perfect move against my next challenge and I teach it to Paras. Now I need to go down into Vermilion City, and while defeating all the trainers, Paras evolves into a Parasect, which means it's time for me to go into the SSN, where my rival awaits for a rematch after the humiliation at the Nugget Bridge. But the problem he had before still maintains, as my Pokémon are very overleveled compared to his, meaning Ivysaur can body slam and spread its seed all over my rival's team, giving me a win. After that amazing performance, I can rob the captain to end the show with a bang and receive my prize, the HM4 cut, that I need to face the third gym leader, Lieutenant Surge, and its electric types. Did I say electric types? I mean electric type, because in the yellow version, Surge only has one Pokémon, a level 28 Raichu. And while it can be very scary, you know what type resists electric? Grass. So all I need to do to get my shiny new badge is click Dig once, Parasect, and watch as Raichu attempts a weak Mega Punch to somehow save him from the ultimate demise. And if it didn't work in Parasect, there isn't much Surge could do against an all-grass type team, so 3 badges down. Now I need to make my way back to Cerulean City and head right to reach the Dark Cave, then pass it without the use of Flash like the psychopath I am, and arrive at Lavender Town. This time around I remember to fight my rival at the Pokémon Tower, but yeah, my team is still overleveled compared to him. But I gotta give credit where credit is due, because he actually forced me to swap Ivysaur out and have Weeping Bell finish the fight. I wasn't in any danger, but hey, he got something. Now I can go to Celadon City, having Ivysaur evolving into a beastly Venusaur in the process, and when I arrive I immediately go into the department store to buy 2 leaf stones. This will be important later. I am faced with the same problem as Cerulean Seed, because my whole party is currently at the next gym's level cap, so I skip the Team Rocket hideout side quest for now and go into Erika's gym. She is another fellow grass type expert, but for this battle I have a secret weapon. So the battle begins and I go for Parasect against Erika's lead Tangela. Now I can exploit the mechanics of this game and click Spore to put Tangela to sleep, because the grass type immunity to Spore only came after generation 6. Before taking a nap, Tangela connects a weak constrict, but its fate is already sealed as 5 leech lives defeat the bowl of noodles. Wimpybell comes in and Parasect's speed catches up to him as Acid takes 80% of my fungus bug life, and Leech Seed deals a lot of damage, but Wimpybell survives with a Slither, and the regen isn't enough for Parasect to survive another one, so I swap into Venusaur, which takes a weak Acid on the switch and defeats Wimpybell next turn with a Body Slam. Next, Erika's Ace comes in, a Gloom, and after missing 2 Leech Seeds and taking 2 Acids for around 60%, Venusaur connects a Body Slam that paralyzes the flower, but this would have been great if Gloom was also seeded, but hey, I gotta work with what I get. Venusaur took another acid for the paralyze, leaving it in the red, so I get my own Gloom in on another acid, but with a speed drop from the paralysis, my own Gloom can outspeed and take Erika's flower down with 3 acids, landing me my 4th gym. Now I need to complete all the postponed lore events, starting with Team Rocket's hideout at the game corner, and I wish I could tell you this was a hard series of battles, but my team is slightly overleveled, which means they all get steam wrecked by my plants, including Giovanni, since he decided to focus on ground types, and if you don't know, grass is super effective against rock. This will not be the last time I see Giovanni, but he won't get much harder if I'm being honest. Next in my to-do list is climb the Pokémon Tower, and you can call Parasect the Exorcist because he led all the way to the top with Dig. Now I can rescue Mr. Fuji and in return get my own Pokéflute that I can use to wake up the blocking Snorlax, which takes me into my worst nightmare. You see, there is a final encounter that I need to get, but it comes with some restrictions. Let's start from the beginning. Literally, at the start of this video I mentioned the dilemma between choosing a game version and a starter for this run. The thing is, I am obligated to either catch a Tangela right now, if I want to finish my grass typing, because this bowl of noodles is the only pure grass type in generation 1, meaning in order for me to scratch Tangela off the list of picks, I have to use it here or make a solo run with Tangela. And I mentioned earlier how fun that would be. However, Tangela shares its playground with another viable encounter, Execute. And although I don't want to use one, there is no rule telling me that I can skip them, and as per Nuzlocke rules, I can only try a catch at the first legal encounter per route. They both share the same route, so I am forced to either first encounter a Tangela or reset. But just like your last argument with your imaginary girlfriend, there is more to this debacle, because not only is Execute 3 times more likely to be encountered compared to Tangela, the route in question that started all of this shit is none other than the Safari Zone. Fuck. I absolutely hate this place. The fact that Pokémon can simply flee because encounters are different in the Safari Zone, together with how rare this spaghetti monster is, makes for a very bad time for me. But I enter the Safari Zone and start looking for my plate of pasta, and let's go to the live reaction for how it all started.
Okay, that's a Tangela. Come on. Fuck.
So yeah, by some grace my first grass type encounter was a Tangela, but it fled after the second Safari Ball. This meant that I had to reset and replay through the whole journey until this moment, only for it to happen again and again until Execute decided to join the party, where I also had to reset, but at least it was for another reason, so that's something. I'm not going to show you every reset because the battles are pretty much the same. Like the encounters, grass typing in generation 1s are surprisingly consistent, that much I'll say. By the end, I was speedrunning until this part with each reset, and I had to reset 15 fucking times before this happened.
Fucking finally I got it, Jesus effing Christ. Ah, thank God. Jesus, it took me like 16 attempts just to get a fucking Tangela. Oh God, the things I do for YouTube. Fuck off.
And now, finally, I have my team completed, and I'm hoping and praying to SpongeBob that there is no more resets for this run. Because if I need to reset again, I'll have to go through the Safari Zone fuckfest a second time, and believe me, 15 resets is enough, I don't need another 15. I hate the Safari Zone so much, and its sketchy method. Now finally, I can play this game, which means a new gym on the horizon. But first, I gotta defeat all the trainers. During that, my Weeping Bell learns Razor Leaf, and that's a sign that it is ready to receive the Leaf Stone and evolve into Victory Bell. And my starter is finally fully evolved, and Gloom learned Petal Dance, so it is also ready to consume some Stone Leaves and evolve into a Vileplume. With the team fully prepped, I can head into the Fuchsia City Gym and challenge Koga, the Poison type specialist. Poison could be a problem to my team since it is super effective against my Garden Dwellers, but half of my team is also part Poison, so they take neutral damage. Battle starts and Koga leads with his first Venonat and I lead Venusaur, and the strategy is simple. On the first turn I connect with a Leech Seed for some tick damage and sustain, with Koga going for a Toxic, to which my part Poison type is immune. So all that's left to do is use 2 Body Slams, the first one paralyzing and the second one brings the Wingless Moth down. The next Venonat takes the field, and if it ain't broke don't fix it, so I click Leech Seed the first turn and Venonat goes for a weak Psybeam. Since the damage was so low, I can safely go for a growth to increase my special, which in this generation means it increases Venusaur's special attack and special defense, so it can take the psychic moves a little better, and after setting up a second growth I can start body slamming this bug as well, since neither Psybeam or Psychic are doing much damage to body slams and this duel. Koga's third Venonat comes in, and yes, his team is very diverse, this motherfucker should read about diversity and inclusion, but who am I to talk? Same tactic applies, Venusaur sets up the growth, bringing it up to +3, and the Leech Seed taking down Venonat with the 2 more body slams, ending the Venonat gauntlet at 50%. Koga's final team member comes in, and this one is the evolved form of Venonat, a Venomoth. And this fucker has got some decent stats supporting it, as it proves, because on the turn I clicked Leech Seed, Venomoth outspeeds and lands a crit Psychic, bypassing my boosts and bringing Venusaur all the way down to the red. But it connects a Leech Seed in return. Now I need to swap Venusaur out for Parasect on a Toxic that actually connects, but Parasect is neutral against the Psychic moves and has access to Dig, a super effective move that gives it immunity for 1 turn, so it can abuse the Leech Seed tick damage and sustain. This is all fine and dandy, but Parasect is really trying to show off this run and ends the Purple Moth with a crit dig, defeating it and giving me the victory while standing at 80% HP remaining. This battle was very manageable and easy because none of Koga's Pokemon have access to a single Poison type move. And although all of them have access to Psychic or Psybeam, the only real threat was Venomoth, which I could prepare for, and even if things went south, like they did, I had a plan B and actually a plan C. If this was Koga's red or blue team, the story could be very different, but it wasn't, so I got my 5th gym. Now I can make my way on through Saffron City, where Team Rocket is at it again. And they took over the Sylph Company, so me and my botanical monsters head into it to put an end in this situation. While inside the Sylph headquarters, I have to face my rival, and truth is, I'm still very over-leveled compared to his team, so Venusaur and Tangela take care of him, but I'll say this, his team is taking some shape and it actually put my Venusaur in a pinch, but Tangela just cleaned it up. Next I need to defeat Giovanni, but my team is still pretty much over level, and unlike my rivals, his team sucks, being composed of mainly ground types, so it was an easy wipe. Next up is the 6th gym leader Sabrina, the Psychic type expert. And unlike Koga, my part poison types have a really hard time against her team, but on the other hand, Tangela and Parasect can take them on easily, especially Parasect. But all preparations are set, so let's head into the battle. She leads an Abra, and I send out Tangela, trying to go for plan A with a Toxic stall, so on the first turn I click Toxic, and on the second turn I click Growth to get tankier, and on the third turn I click Double Team to make my plate of spaghettis even more tanky. This is all fine since I got my setup completed, if it wasn't all greeted with multiple flashes. Someone arrest this Abra for public indecency, please? By the end of my setup, my Tangela is at +1 special, +1 evasion and -3 accuracy, which shows as Tangela misses the Mega Drain. Yeah, this puts a stop on my strategy, so it's time for plan B, as I switch for Parasect after putting Abra into Toxic range with a couple of Mega Drains, and Parasect luckily comes in on a failed flash, going down to a Toxic. That's the perfect switch in right there, beautiful. Kadabra comes in, and after failing a Psywave, it takes a nap with Spore, then Parasect can exploit Sabrina's team's terrible defenses and start slashing away, defeating the Sentient Shackle with 2 slashes as it stays asleep. Alakazam's Sabrina's ace takes the final stage, and Sabrina fucks it up going for a recover for some reason. Then Alakazam gets put to sleep as well with a Spore, getting annihilated with a crit slash next turn for the victory. Parasect man didn't give much performance in the Mono Bug challenge, but is actually putting in the work this time around. With that, I have 6 teams collected. The next phase of this run is an actual challenge, as next I have to face Blaine, the fire type specialist, and one that might actually pose a threat. But all I can do to prepare is find the secret key in the Pokémon Mansion and defeat every trainer until I'm caught up with level. I got somewhat of a strategy for this, but let's see how it goes. Blaine leads with a Ninetales and I lead Venusaur, and on the first turn, Ninetale lands a very powerful Flamethrower, putting my Flowery Toad at 50% HP before it connects with a Leech Seed. Now I need to make sure I can survive another one, and luckily Blaine chooses Tail Whip this turn and Venusaur gets the boost in special from a Growth. The next 2 turns are weird because I decide to go on the offensive and click Body Slam for a good chunk of damage, leaving Ninetales at around 30% in exchange for a quick attack. Then a Speed tie win grants Venusaur the outspeed and connect with another Body Slam for the win against the Kitsune. And I mean, if Blaine clicked Flamethrower a second time, this fight could have been very different. Rapidash takes the field, and in exchange for another Leech Seed Growth combo, the Fiery Horse retaliates with a Growl and a Stomp. Why isn't Blaine using fire type moves? I don't know, my best guess is because I'm increasing my Venusaur's special, but you won't hear me complain. Because my attack is at -1 from Growl and my special is at +2, I decide to go for a Razor Leaf. Although it is resisted, Razor Leaf has a high crit ratio, so it should deal more damage. And it does get me a crit, putting Rapidash at 45%, which retaliates with another Stomp, but Venusaur's natural bug combined with the regen from Leech Seed means even after all this back and forth, my Venusaur is still at 30% HP remaining. And my Garden Nightmare isn't done yet because the next turn it outspeeds and nails a crit Body Slam, turning this little horse into glue. With the fox and the horse defeated, only the dog is left, as Blaine's ace Arcanine takes the field. Now I need to hope and pray that my +2 Venusaur can survive whatever Arcanine throws its way, because if I want to come out of this battle unscathed, or at least have a real fighting chance, I need to connect this Leech Seed. But Blaine, for some reason, goes for a Reflect, and Leech Seed connects. Now I got a little cocky and admittedly made a bad decision, because I decided to push my luck and go for another Growth, which is received by another Reflect. This means I can go for a Razor Leaf next turn to fish out a crit, which I get, and land Arcanine at 50% after the Leech Seed tick. And this time Blaine does retaliate back with a Flamethrower, but with my Hulking Flower at +3 special, it does very little damage, with Venusaur surviving with 30% HP remaining. Now my ego is on full blast and I risk the crit by clicking Razor Leaf again, getting another critical hit and putting Arcanine in the red after the Leech Seed damage, as it fails to use the takedown. This means a final Razor Leaf defeats Arcanine and Blaine without any casualties. This battle is proof that the AI can be predicted, and although this time around I got lucky, you should always tread carefully. The 8th and final gym leader I have to face is Giovanni, back at Vermilion City, and by now I'm quite acquainted in using Giovanni's team to fertilize my garden, and this time around is no different. Since Vileplume takes care of Drug Trio and Persian, Petal Dance, and after Nidoqueen comes in, the final Pentan Dance deals around 50% before confusing my Rafflesia, which prompts me to switch to Venusaur, which cleans up the battle, defeating Nidoqueen, Nidoking and Rhydon with some Razor Leafs. This guy was never a challenge and he kept that consistently, giving me my 8th badge with ease. Right after the gym, my rival challenges me to a battle before I can reach the next step on my journey. We head into the fight and it's Tangela vs Sandslash, and after setting up a growth and a double team I can defeat the Hedgehog with a Mega Drain, taking 2 poison stings in return but no poison, and the Mega Drain both defeats Sandslash and regenerates my Vines monster health back to full. Execute comes in and I connect a Toxic in exchange for a Poison Powder, and since Tangela can't really do much back, I swap for Victreebel on a failed Poison Powder. And the next turn I can defeat a dozen eggs with an acid. Magneton takes on the field, and before it can even do anything, Victreebel puts it to sleep with a sleep powder, and while it's sleeping defeats it with 2 acids. Ninetales is next, and after putting it to sleep with another sleep powder, I swap for Venusaur, which can connect 1 Leech Seed and 2 Body Slams for the KO. This brings Kadabra into the field, which deals a massive blow to my Venusaur with a Psychic for around 50%, but falls to a single Body Slam. My rival's final member is a Vaporeon that falls to 2 Razor Leafs, only setting up an Acid Armor in return. With that taken care of, I need to make my way onto my final challenge, and after reaching the Victory Road I can come out the other end at the Indigo Plateau, location of the Pokémon League, and my final stretch to complete this challenge. So, after all the preparations are completed, I got my final moveset set up, and I first the first member of the Elite Four, Lorelei, the supposed Ice-type expert that has a team filled with Water types. And truthfully, I could describe to you the entire battle, but since this is basically a Water type team and a Jinx, my Venusaur can sweep Lorelei's team with Razor Leaf, defeating Dewgong, Cloyster and Slowbro. Jinx takes a nap with a Sleep Powder and a Dirt Nap with 2 Body Slams, and Lapras follows its team's lead as it falls to 2 Razor Leafs after connecting a very powerful Blizzard. I mean, if that Blizzard was a crit, this story would have been very different, but alas, I still remain unpunished. Bruno is the second member of the Elite Four that I need to defeat, and I got the perfect strategy to deal with him. Battle starts and I get my main star for this battle out and my Victreebel against his Onix, but instead of defeating the Rocky Snake right away, I get a Swords Dance up before defeating it with a Razor Leaf. Hitmonchan comes in and I can get another Swords Dance up, taking a weak Ice Punch in return and defeating the punching guy with a single acid. Hitmonlee is next and 2 acids deal with it easily, with it only hitting a weak double kick. Bruno's second Onix gets destroyed by a Razor Leaf, bringing in its ace Machamp, but with my Carnivorous Plant at +4 attack, the newly learned Double Edge brings home the victory. Agatha is my upcoming challenge, the third member of this elite, and she specializes in poison types. So against her lead Gengar I choose Parasect, and on the turn Gengar uses a substitute, I can put it to sleep with a Spore that connects through substitute in this generation. Next I need to remove the decoy, and 2 Leech Seeds do the trick, with Gengar waking up during the process but only going for another substitute for some reason. Next turn Gengar goes for a weak Mega Drain and I chose Leech Life again in case he decided to substitute again. But it doesn't, so I put it back to sleep with another Spore and defeat it the next turn with a Dig. This brings gold back in, and I don't want my Zombie Mushroom to take a wing attack, so I swap for Victreebel on a Toxic that misses. This means I can Swords Dance up, taking a weak wing attack in return and defeating the bat the next turn with a Double Edge. Haunter takes the field and my Victreebel can't really touch Ghost types, so I swap Parasect back in as Agatha swaps Haunter for Arbok. Now I click Spore expecting Arbok to stay in, but Agatha swaps again, bringing Haunter in, taking the Spore in its place, which I don't really care for because the upcoming Dig can defeat the Armless Ghost. Arbok gets back into the battle and I go for another Spore that still doesn't connect with Arbok as Agatha swaps again, this time for her ace Gengar, that immediately takes a nap upon entering and promptly gets taken down with the Dig. Now Arbok finally comes in and it gets put to sleep and defeated by a Spore Dig combination. That battle was wild, not in a danger sense since I was never in any real danger of losing Pokemon, but Agatha really didn't want her Arbok to face my Parasect for some reason. Weirdness aside, it's time for my biggest challenge yet, as I need to face the final member of the Elite Four, Lance, the supposed Dragon Tamer that only uses Flying type Pokemon. He leads Gyarados and I lead Venusaur, immediately clicking Sleep Powder but missing and taking a Dragon Rage in return, but the second one connects, only for Gyarados to immediately wake up, prompting me to fire a third Sleep Powder that connects, and this time the Blue Snake stays asleep as Venusaur connects a Leech Seed and keeps sleeping for enough turns for it to fall to 2 crit Razor Leaves. Lance's first Dragonair comes in and I go for the same strategy, Sleep Powder into Leech Seed and finish it up with 2 Body Slams. Dragonair did actually wake up during the process, but only connected with a weak slam. The second Dragonair takes the field, and this one isn't as lucky as it never wakes up during the Sleep Seed slam going down without a fight. Aerodactyl falls to the same fate as it never wakes up even through being healed, so the modified Sleep Seed Razor defeats it. Lance's ace is next, Dragonite, and with Venusaur still being healthy, I stay in and go for a Sleep Powder, but miss and take a big Fire Blast in return, leaving my partner at 40%. But the second Sleep Powder connects, and it allows me to connect with a Leech Seed as Dragonite wakes up. Next, I decide to go on the offensive and fire a Body Slam for around 40% damage and a Paralyze, but in return take a massive Blizzard that leaves my Venusaur at 23 HP after Leech Seed, but also freezes it. So I swap for Victreebel on a full para and click Double Edge, dealing a good chunk of damage but taking a big Fire Blast in return. But since Victreebel outspeeds and Dragonite is in the red, another Double Edge finishes up the battle. That battle went almost perfect, minus the freeze from Blizzard, but everything went according to plan. And now it's time for my final battle of the challenge, one final bound against my rival that is now the Pokemon League champion. I've had many scuffles with this guy, but now its team has taken its final form, so it won't be as easy as the other times. Battle starts and it's Victreebel against Sandslash, and since there isn't much this guy can do against my Fly Trap, I'm free to set up a Swords Dance and defeat it with a Razor Leaf. This brings Alakazam in, the reason why I got my attack up, as it guarantees that one Double Edge finishes off the Poke Anubis. Executor is next, and with Victreebel at +2, 1 acid is all it takes to get the coconuts down. Ninetale takes the field, and since Victreebel is very healthy, I can safely click Double Edge, but there was no need to worry, since it was an outspeed and a one-shot. Next in is Magneton, and I swap for Parasect to give it some time in the limelight, and after taking a Swift on the switch, I can click Dig. And get reminded that Swift can hit through Dig and that Parasect has awful stats, as Dig is just shy of the KO, so my Mushroom needs to take another Swift in order to defeat the bundle of magnets with a Slash. That was not as clean as I was expecting it. Vaporeon, my rival starter, takes the final stage of this run and I swap for Vileplume on a moderate Aurora Beam, but this allows me to put it to sleep with a Sleep Powder and showcase the final strategy of this video, as Vileplume can use Substitute to get the decoy up and safely charge Solar Beam. Usually this would be a terrible idea since Aurora Beam could crit, but with the defensive layer of the Substitute decoy and the Sleep, this is completely safe. But it turns out to also be very anticlimactic, as Solar Beam is just shy of the KO, so Vileplume needs to finish off the battle with a final Pental Dance. And with that, I did it. I completed my Elimination Nuzlocke challenge part 3 Grass types. This was fun. Grass types are very reliably consistent in the Generation 1 games, with some very solid strategies to work with and some decent stat to back them up. For some cases. And through this challenge you might have noticed how overpowered Sleep status is in a Nuzlocke scenario, creating great opportunities for setup and sweep, and all of the grass types have access to some type of sleep inducing move, which makes them very sought after in a Nuzlocke challenge, and in my opinion at least one of the best types to have on your team and definitely one of the easiest mono runs. But let's get back to the grand challenge at hand, as this run added 5 more Pokemon to my champions list and in return banned them from the future runs in this format, This brings my total of champions to 14 out of the total of 80, and it takes me one step closer to using them all. And that's it for the video this time. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. Remember to comment and subscribe for more. I'll catch you on the next one, and never stop being yourselves. Peace.